Happy Wednesday. It's a glorious Wednesday. Summer's about to end here in Texas. The heat's about to go down, and that's a glorious day. What's not a glorious day is for Texas and the buoys in the Rio Grande. According to ground.news, judge orders Texas to move a large floating barrier to the riverbank of the Rio Grande by September 15th. Federal judge has ordered Texas to move a large floating barrier of the Rio Grande after protests from the U.S. and the Mexican government over Governor Abbott's effort to stop migrants from crossing the southern border. The state must move the barrier by September 15th. The barrier consists of bright orange buoys, razor wire, and steel fencing as part of Texas Operation Lone Star initiative to curb the flow of migrants. The U.S. Justice Department and the President Biden administration raised concerns about the barrier's legality, humanitarian impact, and environmental implications. The idea for the barrier was initially considered by President Trump administration in 2020, but was not implemented. The judge's decision is likely to be appealed by the state. And I got word that Greg Abbott is going to take this all the way to the Supreme Court if he can. According to the WinnipegFreePress.com, which is apparently the only centered article talking about this, I mean, you got My Northwest and Washington Times. Mixed factuality, let's see here. Highly factual. So we're just going to go with that one. Here, Austin, Texas, AP, really? Associated Press? Then that's not really center, is it? Might as well just go to the Associated Press and read what they have to say, even though that they lean left. A judge ordered Texas to move the floating barriers used to deter migrants to the bank of the Rio Grande. Let's see here. Federal judge on Wednesday ordered to move the large floating barriers to the bank of the Rio Grande after protests from the U.S. and Mexican government over Republican Governor Abbott's latest tactic to stop migrants from crossing the American southern border. He's trying to stop illegal immigration, illegal migrants from crossing the border. The decision by the U.S. District Judge David Ezra is the victory for the President Joe Biden's administration sued after Texas put a wrecking ball-sized buoys on the water in early July as part of a sprawling border security mission known as Operation Lone Star. The judge says the state must move the barrier by September 15th. The barrier threatens the provision of a treaty between the U.S. and Mexico, wrote Ezra, who also cast doubt on its effectiveness. The state of Texas did not present any credible evidence that the buoy barrier installed has significantly curtailed illegal immigration across the Rio Grande, Ezra wrote. Today's court decisions merely prolongs President Biden's willful refusal to acknowledge that Texas has a rightfully stepping up to do the job that he should have been doing all along, Abbott said. Texas used a dozen of bright orange buoys to create a barrier longer than a soccer field on a stretch of river where migrants often try crossing from Mexico. Texas also has installed razor wire steel fencing on the border that has empowered armed officer to arrest migrants for trespassing charges. The buoy brought a swift legal challenge from the U.S. Justice Department, which accused Texas of putting a barrier on the international border without permission. Abbott would say otherwise. The Biden administration also said that the water barrier raised humanitarian and environmental concerns. I mean, why not stay in Mexico? I mean, how about actually do something about the border instead of leaving it wide open? Texas installed a barrier near the border town of Eagle Pass and put anchors in the riverbed. Eagle Pass is part of the Border Patrol sector that has seen the second highest number of migrant crossing this fiscal year, with about 270,000 encounters though that's lower than it was last year, not including gotaways. The Biden administration has said that the illegal border crossings declined after new immigration rules took effect in May as pandemic-related asylum restrictions expired. Just because you say it's true doesn't mean it's true. Like other pieces of Abbott's multi-billion-dollar border mission, known as Operation Lone Star, the Buoys picked up from where President Donald Trump left off. Plans for the same water barriers were in the pipeline in 2020, according to Mark Morgan, who at the time was acting commissioner of the U.S. Customs and Border Protection. Morgan said the plans were scrapped after Biden took office. He called the barrier a water wall and said it was intended to be used as a stopgap in sections of the border where fences were not yet built or were impractical. So if this goes into the Supreme Court, is the Supreme Court going to rule in the same way that it's always ruled, that the responsibility of the border lies with the federal government and states just have to deal with it? Because that's usually what they've been ruling on. And I don't know the answer to this question is when the federal government fails to do their job, what recourse does the state have to make sure that our borders are secured? Arizona got their hand slapped under Obama, where the migrant crisis wasn't a migrant crisis. The crossings were a lot lower back then, but the Supreme Court ruled that the federal government doesn't want to enforce our border, then it's up to the federal government to not enforce the border, and states have no rights to protect their border because it's a duty that relies within the federal government. Now, is this current Supreme Court, if this goes to the Supreme Court, going to rule in the same way? Because there's case precedents or case law to say that it's up to the federal government. If the federal government doesn't want to do it, then it doesn't get done. Or is this going to be the Supreme Court that says, yes, states have the rights to protect their borders against illegal immigration? I don't know which way it's going to go. It's usually going to be 50-50. And I'm kind of interested in the process, not necessarily the outcome, but more of the process. But I do kind of care about the outcome because if we have no border, then we have no country. If we have no country, then why am I paying taxes to the federal government? Why am I paying taxes to the state of Texas? Why am I paying taxes to the city of Austin if we have no borders? I mean, it's taxation without representation because we have no border. We're not a country because we don't have borders. I mean, this is just a question I have. And it's like, I don't know what a state on the border can do when the federal government fails. I mean, ultimately, we could vote to secede from the union, but that's going to have consequences that may end up similar to the last time states seceded from the union. A lot of people suffered during the Civil War. Both the North and South generations were lost. And we ended up still staying in the union. So I don't know. I don't know what the recourse is. Hopefully this goes to the Supreme Court, and hopefully we could get some states' rights back to allow us to protect our southern border. But who knows? The legal system acts in mysterious ways sometimes. With that being said, that is my video for today. Leave a comment down below on what your thoughts are. But most importantly, have yourself a wonderful day, morning, or evening.